Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Shahrul Adinami Ramdan and I'm going to present a topic under tutorial 6 which is related to network approach, where the topic is what is a policy network arrangement and how can it offer alternative to top-down and bottom-up approaches. Firstly, policy network is resulted from a continuous searching for a more comprehensive approach of making policy other than top-down and bottom-up approach. The term network itself indicates an interdependent relation between organizations as it is intended to clarify the meaning of governance on the one hand and public management on the other. Technically, policy network is sets of formal institutional and informal linkages between the governmental and other actors structured around shared belief and interest in public policy making and implementation. In policy network, different actors are in for different reasons, as there are policy advocates, formulators in instituting the policy, organizing policy implementation, and servicing delivery in informal manner. All networks allow the collective addressing of policy problems which involve complex political, economic and technical tasks as it resulted to the interdependency of resources of one another as it also lead to the bringing convenience to one another. All networks is seen as in specific structural arrangements in policymaking as it is portrayed as network governance as well. In regards to the statement, there are three components that dictate the arrangement, which are the policy actors, their linkages, and the policy boundary. This is related to a writing stated by Birkenhoff in his paper, networks become a sort of marriage of convenience, with the partners retaining their distinctiveness. Policy network also lead to a better coordination and facilitation of network between actors that lead to a better understanding among them in order to implement a more efficient policy. Moving on to the next part, here is the part where policy network has introduced a comprehensive implementation model that is act as a remedy to overcome the problem occurred in a classical top-down and bottom-up approaches. First model is administration implementation. It is a prerequisite to a rational decision-making process. It has low ambiguity and low policy conflict. The process in this implementation is as likely as traditional top-down approach where there is centralization of power and the operation is operated in hierarchical manner. Low policy ambiguity, as referred before, is referring to the suitable actors has been decided to be in the implementation as they are developed over time and they are also made clear with information and resources that need to be required. Their isolation from external influence also happens in order to achieve uniformity of outcome. Low policy conflict, as mentioned before, is referring to the mechanism of normative compliance that refers to a granting a legitimacy to a person to be superior in a hierarchy, which every order given are legitimate. Going to the next model, which is political implementation, its ambiguity is low, but the policy conflict is high. This is referring to the power where it is come where or it is supported in the implementation outcomes. Goal is clearly stated but may cause disagreement due to incompatibility in achieving the goal. Given conflict and vulnerability to external influence, effective implementation is ultimately determined by sufficient power to force one's will or to bargain. This is because agreement is usually achieved through coercion of power or bargaining. Implementing agencies to maintain strong political direction and stance, and firm governance to ensure policy decisions are to be followed at the back end. Control remains largely exerted by the authority while implementation is typically uniform and closely monitored, while local autonomy is effectively eliminated. Moving on to the next model, which is symbolic implementation. Its ambiguity is high and policy conflict also high. It sets up new goal while emphasizes in committing to old goal. There is also a coalitional strength to determine the policy outcome, as formation of competing coalitions seeking to resolve policy ambiguity in their group's favor. The localized actors will be focusing on the issue that needs to be resolved, while exerting their influence by providing incentive and resources. There will be the need to reduce either the level of conflict or ambiguity in order to move the policy to a more successful implementation process. If certain situation happen that could affect the implementation of policy. Going to the last part of the model, which is experimental implementation. Its ambiguity is high, and while the policy conflict is low, there is little controversy surrounding the policy, but there is uncertainty about ideal implementation. The local contextual conditions play a critical role as they serve as the key driver of policy outcomes. The focus on local implementation resulted variety approaches as it is beneficial to improve implementation. Compliance monitoring mechanisms is due to responsiveness to local context and prioritization of learning process. Sharing of general knowledge, feedbacks, and evaluation are the main element to succession of the implementation. Basically, experimental implementation is all about learning on whether thing works out or not and why. In conclusion, it can be concluded that countries that have authoritarian and centralized ruling is a foreigner to this kind of arrangement or non-hierarchical arrangement as it is a thing that yet to be institutionalized. This is because the policy network is all about creating networks with intended organizations and is not applicable to authoritarian country. Networks create synergy that is highly envisaged in public service as it is crucial to be addressed in the developing and transitioning countries. Policy network also essential to be adopted in modern world as government especially can shift its perception towards non-state actors as competitor to collaborating actor in policy making process. That is all from me. Thanks for watching.